Something really crazy is happening to me. I need to stop it, but I don't know how.
6 days after Rose Cotter's death, police officer Joel, now cursed, confronts 2 criminals who had shot a mother and her child in Newark. One of them asks, "Who are you?" To which Joel responds that he has something for them, but that they need to watch what he's about to do. He then pulls out a knife, stabs one of the criminals, and slits his throat. The other criminal shoots Joel, but Joel shoots him back in self-defense. Realizing his mistake, Joel rushes to the man saying, "Don't die." He removes his mask and tells the man that he can't die because the curse won't transfer if he dies. However, the man eventually dies. Frustrated, Joel stands up, muttering that now there's no one for the curse to pass to. But suddenly, he hears a noise behind him and turns to see a boy there. Joel confronts him, asking who he is and what he's doing there, to which the boy, Lewis, replies that he was just there to buy from them. Joel apologizes, saying this wasn't meant for you. And when Lewis asks what wasn't meant for him, Joel only says he's sorry and leaves. However, as he steps outside, he encounters more criminals, forcing him to rush back inside. He manages to escape through a window as they shoot at him, but he's run over and killed by an oncoming car. Next, pop superstar Skye Riley joins Drew for her first interview since her accident a year ago. Drew praises Skye's stunning look and mentions her upcoming tour, asking if this comeback feels emotional. Skye agrees, reflecting on how stress during her Grammy-winning tour led her to poor coping mechanisms like drugs and alcohol. She apologizes to those she let down, promising it won't happen again. When asked about life after the hospital, Skye shares her gratitude for a second chance, explaining how she's learned to embrace sobriety and appreciate life anew. After the interview, Skye greets her fans, signing autographs and taking selfies. When she returns to her car, her mom Elizabeth praises her for being perfectly graceful, and her assistant Joshua excitedly informs her that she's trending #2 on Twitter. Next, we see Skye at rehearsals, when suddenly she feels a sharp pain in her back mid-move, prompting instructor Anton to stop everyone and ask if she's okay. Skye insists she's fine, and Anton calls for a break and some ice. But Skye resists, asking if they can just continue. Later, Skye pulls a box of pills from her bag, but a sudden knock on the door startles her, causing her to accidentally drop the pills down the wash basin drain. Elizabeth opens the door, asking if she's okay and ready to go, to which Skye replies that she just needs another minute. Later, Skye meets with Lewis, who suddenly pulls her inside, and holding a sword to her throat, asks what she wants. Skye nervously replies that she just wants Vicodin, like last time, to help with the pain. Lewis says, Skye Riley isn't just gonna suddenly show up here, to which she tells him he texted her to come over. Confused, he checks his phone, admitting he doesn't remember sending that message. Skye tells him to back off, and he quickly apologizes, explaining he's having the worst week. Skye asks what was with the sword, to which he says he is in the middle of some genuinely freaky stuff and asks does she believes in weird things. Skye decides to leave, but he requests her to stay, saying he is stoked to see her and tells her to come in and be his guest. Skye says she just wants Vicodin for her back, to which he asks her to wait and he will be right back. While waiting, Skye notices drugs on the table, and then her attention shifts to the TV where news reports show that Paul Hudson died in a car accident after Paul and Skye had left a private party while intoxicated. The report then shows her photos, which went viral 2 weeks after the accident, prompting Skye to turn off the TV. Now, when Lewis doesn't emerge from his room for a long time, Skye starts heading toward his bedroom, but suddenly, Lewis bursts out, screaming, which frightens Skye. Lewis then grows terrified as he sees something behind her, and she asks what it is, to which Lewis screams, "Get away from me!" He then begins choking, prompting Skye to rush to check on him and ask if she should call an ambulance. But after a moment, Lewis suddenly calms down and a creepy smile spreads across his face. Skye, terrified, falls back, and Louis grabs a weight plate, and Skye watches in horror as he strikes himself in the face with it. Louis lowers the plate, revealing his crushed face before collapsing and dying, leaving Skye in shock. Skye dials 911 on her phone, but realizing there are drugs on the table, she hesitates and ultimately decides not to make the call. Shocked by the incident, Skye returns home, and as she tries to sleep, she hears a noise that startles her. She gets up to check, but finds no one there. However, as she scans the room, she is horrified to see Louis standing there, who disappears the moment she turns on the light. The next day, Elizabeth tells Skye she looks exhausted and reminds her to stay on top of her sleep schedule. She asks if she has spoken to Gemma about coming on tour, but Skye replies that Gemma won't want to hear from her. Elizabeth insists that Gemma is her best friend and would forgive her. Skye tells her to drop it, but Elizabeth argues that real friends are hard to find. Joshua offers to help with any personal tasks, and Elizabeth says she needs to stay hydrated, but Skye tells her to stop. Darius then enters the room and says he has a small favor to ask of Skye. He explains that there is a fundraising dinner for Music Inspires Hope tomorrow night, a foundation supporting underprivileged youth. He mentions that Interscope Records has done a lot of work with the foundation, and he was hoping she would be willing to be a special presenter. He reassures her that her remarks are pre-written, and all she has to do is smile and read from the teleprompter. Next, during Skye's photo shoot, her expressions reveal that something is weighing on her mind. Despite the glamour of the moment, she seems increasingly worried, her focus drifting as she battles with whatever is troubling her. Later, Skye Googles, "Does vomit have DNA?" recalling she vomited after seeing Louis's dead body at his house. Worried, she begins to write a text message to Gemma, but hesitates and decides not to send it. And just then, she receives a text from an unknown number. She opens the message, which reads, "Were you at Louis' apartment last night?" Skye feels a surge of fear as she reads the text. And just then, she hears a sound, but when she quickly turns around to check, she finds no one there. However, when she turns back, she is shocked to see something, and it's revealed that Louis is standing right behind her. But when she looks back again, no one is there. As she turns once more, Louis is still behind her, and suddenly, he forces a smile onto her face, sending a wave of terror through her. Skye looks around, finding herself completely alone, unable to understand what is happening to her. Her team then comes there, and Skye tells Elizabeth that she's not wearing the dress, and when she asks what's wrong with it, Tanya flashes a light on Skye, and she points out that the lighting will show right through it on stage. Elizabeth says she thinks Skye is overreacting a little, but Skye firmly insists, "I'm not wearing it." The next day, at an event, a fan named Alfredo tells Skye he can see her sadness and claims he can make her happy, making her uneasy. He compliments her skin before security intervenes, pulling him away. Skye goes backstage, where Elizabeth asks if she's okay and offers her a break. But Skye shakes her head, saying, "Let's just get through this." Now when Skye comes out, a little girl with a creepy smile approaches her. Skye asks, "What's your name?" But the girl just keeps smiling and staring at her. Feeling uneasy, Skye signs the girl's shirt, and Jason asks, "How about a photo?" As they pose for the picture, the girl continues to stare at Skye, deepening her discomfort, and then she walks away. Later, Skye, puzzled over who could have sent the message, anxiously pulls at her hair, and after some thought, she calls Gemma, but it goes to voicemail. Skye leaves a message, saying she's been thinking about her and wants to apologize for everything. She admits she misses her, and asks if she will call her back. Soon after, Gemma calls back, and Skye admits feeling overwhelmed and hesitantly asks if she can come over, to which Gemma agrees, saying she'll be there in 45 minutes. Skye drinks from her water bottle, puts it on the table, and then leaves, leaving the bottle behind. She then begins singing a song while playing the piano, but after a while, a sudden noise startles her, and when she gets up to investigate, she finds her water bottle shattered on the floor. Skye grabs a mop to clean up the broken glass, but to her shock, she discovers Alfredo's t-shirt, the one she signed at the event, lying on the floor. Scared, as she moves forward, she finds Alfredo's shoes and clothes on the floor. The lights suddenly go out, and to Skye's horror, she sees Alfredo standing naked in front of her. grinning eerily. As he suddenly lunges toward her, Skye bolts in fear, but stumbles back when she spots Gemma at the door. Gemma, alarmed, asks what's happening, but Skye urgently signals her to be quiet and grabs a nearby vase. Gemma asks if someone else is there and cautiously follows Skye. But to Skye's shock, Alfredo's clothes have vanished, and even more unsettling, her water bottle is now back on the table. Confused, Skye hugs Gemma and asks how she got here so quickly, to which Gemma says she called her about an hour ago. Skye drinks from her bottle, and when Gemma asks if she's thirsty, Skye explains that her therapist advised her to drink a glass of water whenever she feels overwhelmed by the urge to get drunk. They sit down, and Skye tells Gemma that Lewis from high school died in front of her yesterday. Gemma is shocked, and Skye explains that she went to his apartment to buy Vicodin for pain, stressing that she hasn't touched alcohol or coke in a year, but her back is still messed up. Gemma asks what happened to Lewis, and Skye explains that when she showed up, he was terrified of something. He started freaking out, screaming, and then grabbed a metal gym weight and smashed his own face in with it. Gemma is shocked, and Skye continues, saying she didn't know what to do, so she just left him there. Gemma asks if anyone else knows about this, and Skye replies, no. Before asking if she should tell the police, Gemma advises against it, saying if anyone connects her to a drug dealer's death, the story will take over her life and ruin everything, and it's not her fault. Skye confesses she keeps seeing his face everywhere, to which Gemma says she can't imagine how scary that must have been. Next, Skye is badly injured in an accident, and to her horror, she sees Paul's dead body next to her. But suddenly, she wakes up from the nightmare, gasping for breath. As she lies back on the bed, she tells Gemma, "I'm so sorry about everything." To which Gemma calmly replies, "It's okay, I already forgave you." Skye says she feels like her brain is full of chaos and noise, like she's trapped alone in darkness, wanting to quiet the noise but not knowing how. Gemma responds, "That's because you're a horrible person." Shocked, Skye asks, "What did you say?" And to her terror, Gemma wakes up with a creepy smile. Her face suddenly changes, causing Skye to fall off the bed, but she finds no one on the bed. Just then, Gemma arrives, and Skye notices it's morning and realizes she's late. In a panic, she rushes out to drink water, and when Gemma asks if she can help, Skye asks, "Will you come on tour?" To which Gemma hesitates, saying, "I feel like this is something we should talk about first." At that moment, Elizabeth enters, and Skye apologizes to her before quickly rushing to her room. Next, we see Skye at the rehearsal, and everything is going smoothly until, suddenly, a face flashes in front of her, causing her to break a bone in her leg, and she screams in pain. Anton rushes over to check on her and asks, "What's wrong?" And to her shock, Skye realizes her leg is completely fine. She quickly gets up and claims that someone was out of place and knocked her over. However, Anton replies, "From where I was watching, I didn't see anyone out of place." Frustrated, Skye heads backstage, where Joshua passes by her with a creepy smile on his face. And when she enters her room, she finds that someone has completely destroyed it. Skye pulls her hair in frustration, and as she tries to leave, Elizabeth arrives. And Skye asks Joshua what his problem is, to which he claims he has no idea what she's talking about. Elizabeth takes Skye back to her room, where Skye tells her to believe that Joshua did it, to which she tries to calm her down, saying that Joshua has been with her the entire day. Elizabeth asks if Skye is being honest, and if she's using again, to which Skye denies it, offering to take a test, but admits she feels like she's losing her mind and regrets agreeing to the tour. Elizabeth reassures her, promising to adjust the schedule to help her decompress, but insists Skye pull herself together and attend Darius's foundation event, reminding her of her commitment to underprivileged youth. Later, backstage, Skye texts Gemma, asking what time she'll be done with her tasks, and as she waits, she's distracted by a fly buzzing around her. She texts Gemma to come over when she's finished, but the fly continues to bother her. Then, Skye receives a message from an unknown number saying, "I know this is Skye Riley, the singer." The fly lands just above her lips, and in swatting it away, she accidentally smudges her lip color. She then heads to the stage, where the crowd cheers for her, and she thanks them warmly. She then begins reading from the teleprompter, but but it suddenly stops, leaving her momentarily speechless. And after a brief pause, she says, hoping the audience is enjoying the party. When the teleprompter still doesn't resume, she decides to speak off script, talking about her past struggles with drugs. However, the guests respond poorly, and the atmosphere becomes tense. Noticing the audience's reaction, Skye quickly apologizes and realizes the teleprompter is working again. She begins reading, introducing the next guest as a very special person who surely needs no introduction, Paul Hudson. The crowd, along with Skye, is shocked, and she asks aloud why it says that. Just then, she spots Paul in the audience, staring at her with a creepy smile as he begins walking toward her. Terrified, Skye tells him to stay away, insisting that Paul is dead and that he isn't really Paul. She closes her eyes, whispering to herself to stay calm, and when she opens them, Paul has vanished. An older woman approaches to check on her, but Paul suddenly appears, startling Skye so badly that she accidentally pushes the woman, injuring her. Later, Skye stares at her phone, waiting for a reply from Gemma, but instead, she receives a message from the unknown, saying, "You're in serious danger, and I can help you." Skye texts back, "Who is this?" To which the response comes quickly, "You're not imagining things, and everything you're seeing is real." Panicked, Skye gets up and steps outside, only to receive another text saying, "Lewis posted this 4 days ago." She plays the video, which shows Lewis recording inside his apartment. Pointing the camera at a dark corner, he asks, "Do you see it?" As he zooms in, he whispers, "It just stares at me," smiling. Suddenly, Lewis appears, startling Skye, but when she looks around, she realizes no one is there. Skye decides to meet with the person who's been messaging her and asks how he knew Lewis, to which he explains he didn't, and he'd only been trying to warn him. He tracked down his address and found his apartment door unlocked, only to discover that Lewis was already dead. He checked Lewis's phone and saw she was the last person he'd texted. Skye asks what he was trying to warn Lewis about, and he replies that Lewis didn't kill himself, but he was systematically infected, possessed, and then murdered by some kind of metaphysical being. Skye asks what he's talking about, to which he says you might call it a spirit or a demon, but he has no clue what it is. It disguises itself to look like smiling people, but only the person infected by it can see it. Skye calls it supernatural bullshit, but he counters that she's already seen it, which is why she's still sitting here. Skye admits to him that she feels like she's losing her mind, to which he tells her that's precisely what this thing does. It drives its host insane, feeding on their fears and traumas, and eventually forces them to kill themselves in front of a witness. This witness then becomes the new host, and that's how she got it from Lewis. He explains that it's a parasitic entity that has been passed from person to person, in a chain stretching back through various hosts, including a cop in Jersey, a doctor, a patient, and further back. He's documented all of this and offers to show her, and reveals that his brother was a host, 8 people before her. He says his brother tried to warn him, but it was hard to believe him because what he was saying sounded insane. Skye asks if he's gone to the police, to which he scoffs, saying they wouldn't be able to help. Skye asks if she's just supposed to wait until this thing kills her, to which he tells her he wants her help to destroy it. She asks how, to which he explains the chain breaks if the host dies outside the entity's control. Skye realizes this means she'd have to die before it kills her. He agrees, suggesting a safe way to stop her heart temporarily and then resuscitate her, introducing himself as Morris, an ER nurse. He warns they're running out of time as she's been infected for 3 days. Suddenly, people at the bar recognize Skye, mock her over a viral video, and start filming, forcing her to leave. Skye returns home to pack her things, but just as she's about to leave, she freezes in terror, seeing the background dancers standing in her living room, their faces twisted into unsettling, eerie smiles. Panic setting in, Skye looks towards the door, but when she looks back, the dancers are even closer, their smiles growing more sinister. Mustering her courage, she suddenly runs to escape, and the dancers follow her, but she meets with an even more chilling sight, and Skye realizes she's trapped, as the group behind her now blocks her way back. The next moment, they all suddenly appear directly in front of her and begin closing in slowly, step by step. Skye panics and bolts toward the door, but before she can reach it, they grab her, pick her up, and hurl her onto a table. She tries to get up and escape, but they slam her head against the piano, and the impact leaves her dazed and disoriented. The group surrounds her, and one of them yanks her hair, forcing her to scream in agony. Her cries echo in the room, but they're cut short when a hand reaches toward her mouth and forces its way inside, impossibly far, and the scene abruptly cuts to black. Next, we see Skye and Paul returning from the party, both visibly intoxicated. Their conversation quickly escalates into an argument, with Paul angrily calling her a psycho. Enraged, Skye retaliates, but Paul mocks her, laughing at her frustration. The tension in the car reaches its peak as Paul's taunts push Skye over the edge. In a fit of anger, she jerks the steering wheel, causing the car to veer off the road and crash violently. The screen fades to black before Skye suddenly awakens. Elizabeth is seated by her side, trying to soothe her, and she tells her that she had a mild concussion. Skye asks where she is, and Elizabeth explains that it's a private wellness clinic. She adds that she fainted, hit her head, and was found unconscious on her living room floor, and the doctor mentioned that she was severely sleep-deprived and dehydrated. Skye insists that's not what happened, but Elizabeth tells Joshua to inform the doctor that Skye is awake. After he leaves, Elizabeth reassures Skye they can cover it with makeup, and the team is working on a hairpiece. She clears Skye's schedule for rest, but withholds her phone. Skye insists something crazy is happening, and she needs to leave. Elizabeth, however, reassures her that they'll stay together until tomorrow, when they head to the venue for the pre-show, to ensure she's at 100% and ready to perform. Skye says she can't do the show, but Elizabeth warns her that if she cancels, she'll have to check herself into a recovery program. Skye protests, saying she doesn't understand, but Elizabeth firmly states there are no more second chances. If she cancels, this is it, because the media will tear her apart, and everything they've built will be over. Skye asks why that's all Elizabeth cares about, accusing her of treating her like a mere wind-up toy. Elizabeth, visibly angry, stands up and says she has given up everything for Skye. She sacrificed every fiber of her being to support her, yet Skye is too selfish to see it. Elizabeth reminds her of the hell she's put everyone through, and yet they still stand by her, only for Skye to want to throw it all away. Skye says she wishes Elizabeth could feel what it's like to live inside her head, to which Elizabeth says she's tasted what's in her mind. She then walks to a mirror and smashes it with her hand. Terrified, Skye tries to pull the IV out of her arm, and meanwhile, Elizabeth approaches her with a shard of the broken mirror. As Skye struggles, the entity says, "Look what she's doing to her poor mother," and then begins stabbing her neck. Skye finally manages to rip out the IV, but the entity controlling Elizabeth makes her stab her own eye. Skye tries to escape, but suddenly stops, horrified to find herself holding the mirror shard, her gown soaked in blood. Turning around, she sees her mother lying fatally wounded on the floor. She slaps herself, whispering that it's not real, but as she rushes to her mother's side, she realizes in horror that the entity made her kill her own mother. Skye steps out and tries to slip away quietly without being noticed. However, Joshua spots her and notices the blood, asking, "Is that blood?" Skye quickly denies it, but Joshua, concerned, says they need to get the doctor immediately. Skye snaps, telling him to shut up, but by then, the clinic staff has already arrived. Panicked, Skye approaches the security guard and seizes his gun. She points it at the crowd, warning everyone to stay back. Darius asks what she's doing and urges her to think about the tour, but Skye flees. As Skye steps out of the clinic, she accidentally steps on a broken bottle, wincing in pain. Just then, Gemma approaches her, asking, "What are you doing here?" To which Skye asks if her car is nearby, and Gemma replies that her mom's driver brought her. Without wasting another moment, Skye points the gun at the driver, forcing him out, and they drive off, leaving the clinic behind. Gemma asks, "Where are we going?" But Skye texts Morris for help and says she doesn't know, just to keep driving. Morris replies with a location, and Skye tells Gemma they need to head to Staten Island. Gemma insists she needs a hospital, but Skye pulls the glass from her feet and tells Gemma to pull over. Gemma reminds her she asked to go to Staten Island, but Skye says, "All I've ever done is make your life hell." so just pull over and get away from me before I ruin your life too. Gemma refuses, declaring ride or die, and keeps driving. Skye says she needs to tell her something, but her phone rings before she can, and she freezes, shocked to see the call is from Gemma. Scared, she answers, and Gemma apologizes, explaining that it took her a few days to return the call after hearing Skye's voicemail. Skye asks if she spent the night at her place, to which Gemma replies she hasn't been there in over a year, and as Skye looks at Gemma, the entity says, "Gemma hates you." Frustrated, Skye attempts to get out of the car, but the entity tells her that no one cares about her. Skye tries to convince herself it's not real, repeating to herself, "It's just in my head, and you're not in control, I am." Closing her eyes, she keeps repeating, "I am in control," and when she opens her eyes, she finds herself driving and narrowly avoids an accident. She then visits Morris and hands him the gun, saying, "If your theory doesn't work, or if you see me change and start smiling, shoot me in the head." Morris brings her into a building, and as they enter a freezer, he warns her that the freezer latch is broken, so if the door closes all the way, it can't be opened from the inside. They begin the procedure, and Morris explains that the moment she flatlines, he will start a timer for 8 minutes. Once the timer is up, he will inject a dose of adrenaline into her heart and begin CPR to resuscitate her. Skye apologizes about her brother and thanks him for helping her. Morris asks what made her change her mind, and she responds, "Every good thing in my life ends up broken because of me. I hurt everything and everyone I touch, so it doesn't matter what happens to me anymore. But I won't let this thing use me to hurt anyone else." Morris then places a thermometer in her mouth and instructs her not to move, saying he just has to get something. He then leaves the freezer, leaving her alone inside. Panicked, she pulls the thermometer out and looks around, whispering, "Don't leave me alone here." After a while, blood drips onto her, and she hears someone crying, and to her horror, she sees the entity in her form, right above her, crying in pain. Skye is terrified by the sight, and after a moment, the entity falls onto her. But when Skye looks around, she realizes there's no one else in the freezer. Suddenly, the entity grabs her hair and slams her against the wall, saying, "I've been waiting for you for such a long time." It then says, "I like wearing your skin," before throwing her aside. Skye turns around, and the entity taunts her, telling her she can't escape from it. She glances toward the door, but suddenly, the entity appears right beside her and climbs on top of her, saying, "You will never escape who you truly are on the inside." Desperate, Skye tries to reach the needle, but the entity says, "Look at me," and Skye is frozen, stunned by the sight. The entity then force open her mouth, and then opens its mouth, prompting Skye to close her eyes. Suddenly, Skye opens her eyes, biting off the entity's thumbs, causing it to scream in pain. Seizing the opportunity, Skye grabs the needle and injects herself, making the entity scream in frustration. As Skye begins to fade, the entity starts laughing at her, telling her this isn't real. And when Skye looks at her hand, she finds there is no needle in her hand. The entity slowly gets up, and Skye desperately tries to escape. But the door slams shut automatically, and the entity says, "You are not in control. I am." It then moves toward her, adds, "Break a leg out there," and shuts the door. After a while, gas begins filling the chamber, and as the gas thickens, Skye suddenly finds herself on a stage, the crowd cheering around her, and her mother, Joshua, and Darius are also there, watching as if nothing is wrong. Skye then sees the entity, now in her form, wearing a creepy smile. It tears her dress, exposing the scar on her skin, and then with its hands, it begins to rip open her stomach, letting the entity's hands emerge. Skye watches in horror as the entity's head slowly emerges from inside her, and as she screams in terror, she collapses to her knees. The entity, now face to face with her, approaches her, opens her mouth wide open with its hands, and tears her jaw apart. But in reality, Skye is writhing in agony on stage, trapped in the horror of her mind. After a while, she rises, and the crowd erupts in cheers once again. But when she turns toward them, with a smile on her face, the crowd falls eerily silent. Skye raises the microphone to her mouth, and in front of them all, she ends her own life by driving the microphone into her eye. And the crowd screams in terror as the screen cuts to black and the movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.